Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. Nathan is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. If you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line, 605-477-3249. 605-477-3249. Doc Ram's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Welcome, Rick. And there's silence. Rick, are you there? Yeah.
Hey there, Vincent.
Hey, how are you?
What's going on? Somebody texted something I did not write from here and then cut me off.
I don't know, but I can tell you this, that the worst telecommunications company on the planet wasn't working this morning. CenturyLink.
Yeah.
And, we were down. And
somebody contact my machine with you because there's a message that says, again, I didn't send that.
Okay.
How does that work? Physics. How does it work? You better have somebody at GCN take a closer look after the show. Something very weird is going on. I have a lot to say about the media also, by the way.
Maybe it's not GCN. But anyway,
it's not GCN.
Yeah. You know, you want to talk about the media? Go ahead, please. It's number one on my list as well.
Well, it doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree. You know, I've seen TV, West Wing, others, where they have the media in a room and the president comes in to address their questions. And sometimes they're sharp because they're pointed questions trying to position or corner the president for answers. No problem. When you watch the rudeness in public to our president, I draw a line there, and that's where I no longer support anything to deal with democratic processes or the so-called media that is trying to, it's wrong. Yeah, it doesn't matter whether you like someone or not. You still have a thing called respect. And once that's gone, now you've lost mine.
Okay, so you're talking about CNN, I believe.
Well, we can start with CNN. Yeah, that's a good place to go. How about NBC? I remember when I used to watch Walter Cronkite because I believed in him. And when Dan Rather came on, he was not as thorough. He tried to be, but he wasn't Walter Cronkite. On the road with Charles Kuralt. What has happened to the quality and mannerisms of previous news reporting and the way it used to be? And what I remember is in deep respect for the public's knowledge base, not their own personal agendas or gains. And I remember that, this isn't right. It's so not right that the Democratic Party is now advocating violence in public. Wrong. By any standards. Wrong. It doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree. That aspect is wrong by any measure. and I am offended by what's happening in my face as a, educated scholar trying to find my way through the mess of all of this. And I don't appreciate the media's ways of presenting their way of trying to get to the truth of things. Now, it's true that L. Ron Hubbard talked about leverage and blackmail and the whole constructs of having something on somebody so you can manipulate them. And there's no question that that part of reality is happening all around us. They tried to do that with me a lot of different ways, first with honeypots and then with drugs. And I can tell you that what is happening, what I'm seeing happening in America now is it being ripped from the inside out. And when I watch, oh no, I'm not even going to go there. It doesn't, I'm sorry. I am deeply offended by what I'm seeing happening in America right now, and I am respectfully requesting that when you see this kind of thing and it offends you, you actively do not participate. And I mean the old standards of Mahatma Gandhi. Nonviolent protesting. I won't participate. I have right now have this one guy that calls me on the telephone to get my opinion on political. Oh, well, you agreed in the past, Mr. Miller. The thing is, guess what? It's a recording that I couldn't tell was a recording. And the guy kept talking right over me when I said, wait a minute. And he just kept going. And then I realized it was a recording. The level of pushiness that's happening now is offending me on a personal level of privacy in that regard. I don't mind things like facial recognition and things of that nature that with AI. We are going now into a universe that is deadly waters. And there is something out there. It's no longer about Republicans and Democrats. It's about globalists and nationalists. And I have always been a nationalist. I am very proud to be American. I served my country. I did my thing. I have titanium in every limb trying to do the right thing. And this offends me.
Okay. So yesterday, Guineith Isaacs.
Sorry, Vincent, I didn't mean.
No, you're right on the money. Yesterday, Guineith Isaacs was on the air with me for 2 hours live from Australia, and she was talking about an old but forgotten trait of preparedness, and that was civility, politeness, kindness, helpfulness, and we've lost it. We've lost it on the roads. I was watching a YouTube video yesterday about BMW drivers, and it's titled something like BMW drivers think they own the road. And it shows BMW after BMW, different models with these, let's say 30 to 40-year-olds driving these BMWs recklessly, carelessly, weaving in and out, crashing them, failing to stop at red lights, just driving right through red lights and intersections and hitting other cars with reckless abandon. Okay? So that's just BMW. But I'm sure it's not just limited to BMW.
Well, the BMW part is a reflection. Yeah, it's a reflection of something else going on. Money and the construct of what money, not having money, creates in a society of disparity. It's wrong. Something's wrong here. It's this me first attitude. And what you're talking about, I believe, in one small example, was a CNN reporter, a White House correspondent. His name is Jim Acosta, Acosta. I hope he gets banned.
And he was absolutely. Well, it's worse than that. I think CNN should be banned because CNN stuck up for him and said, this is what we need to do. All right, so So Jim Acosta was at a White House press conference at the White House. He was pushy, me first, arrogant, and he just kept talking. And the president tried to very politely, say no. But this guy kept pushing and using a loud voice, disrespectful of the office of president. Now, even though I despised Barry Soetoro, I would have defended him the same way if Jim Acosta did the same thing to him. Okay? The president had to put him in his place. The president told him no, in the president's word. And it was, as you said, offenseful. It was pushy.
Imagine what we look like in other countries. Just imagine that.
Right.
Yeah.
If it happened with Fidel Castro, Jim Acosta would be out in the yard within minutes, and you would have heard maybe 5, 6, 7 gunshots all at the same time. That's my take on what would have happened. Well, so it's happening with motorists. This is symptomatic of the devolution of society. It's happening with motorists. It's happening with airplane passengers. It's back to this me first. It's people with shopping carts. It's people in parking lots. It's there's a parking space and you're waiting for it and all of a sudden a car comes in from behind you and pulls into your parking space. It is the absence of politeness. So Jim Acosta was in the White House, and he asked a White House staffer for the directions to the men's room. And the staffer said, Mr. Acosta, follow this hall, take the first left, and you'll see a sign on the door that says, gentlemen. But don't let that deter you. Jim Acosta. Absolute national disgrace. We'll be right back. Class, we're going into a break, and I want to make sure that y'all had a chance to hear what I said toward the end of the previous segment. So Jim Acosta, the CNN reporter, asked a White House staffer for directions to the men's room. The staffer said, Mr. Acosta, follow this hall, make the first left, and you'll see a sign on the door that says, gentlemen. But don't let that deter you. That's how I feel about CNN's Jim Acosta. Absolute disgrace.
The problem that I'm having is that they're allowing the quality of behavior to deteriorate as American by the news media. And that alone is what I call false flags. By definition. Now, if you have a reporter that has an issue and wants to get to it, like the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia getting away with murder because he's in the middle of a $2 billion arms deal, thinking he can get away with it. That's crazy. But what is happening in our White House is not correct at any level by anyone. Whether or not you think that Trump belongs in the White House is arbitrary. That's, I think he's not as articulate, and it kind of embarrasses me when he talks because of the way he would express his feelings. He's not as sharp in certain arenas, and I'm guessing he's also got, just like in the movie, a designated survivor, infighting going on within his own inner circle that, who knows who's what. But this is not right by any standards. There are what we call rules of engagement, where who shot first. So this is moral codes of ethics and rules of conduct. And what we're seeing today is the breakup of the American family and what happens 2 generations down. That's the way I'm reading it. That's the way I'm seeing it. The constructs of money and what defines who you are. What defines who you are is not who you are, but what you do. There it is, CNN.
Okay, so one of the things that the White House is being attacked for is the use of the word invasion. They're saying that this caravan from Central America marching toward the United States with intent to just breach the border and come in as an invasion. And the media is saying that's not an invasion. Well, let me read some of the synonyms for the word invasion. INVASION.
Yeah.
Influx.
Look like
influx. One. Flood. Rush. Torrent. Deluge. Avalanche. Okay? Those are synonyms for the word invasion. So
invasion
what would you call
strength, like they're trying to overrun you? What does that mob coming down that bridge look like to you? Do you think you'd let that happen in Missouri if it was coming in from, let's say, Ohio?
That would be an invasion. And,
what exactly else is it?
Right,
it's not due process.
Right. It's not due process. It is, they're calling it a caravan. It's a group of people, babies, men, women, and children, babies, teenagers, all coming here looking for something better.
That's wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, but when my grandparents came here, they didn't invade the United States. When the Irish came here, they didn't invade the United States. They went through Ellis Island. They were examined by doctors for disease. They had a test they had to take about what America is, what it stands for, how it works. That's what they had to do. And they spoke English. My grandparents spoke English. So if I hit my thumb with a hammer, I'm probably going to say something in English. Because I don't know Italian. Because we didn't speak Italian. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. RichardAllenMiller.com. Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. CNN says on CNN.com, the entire, this quote, headlines, quote, the entire White House press corps should walk out and stop indulging this bully, end quote. Okay. Well, I think that would be great. I think that especially CNN should walk out. And that'll save the White House the trouble of throwing them out. You know, there's a time and place for civility, as you said, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. You can ask questions politely, but for people to think that they can push the president around is totally unacceptable. And so where does this come from? And I believe that you hit the nail right on the head. There was a gentleman by the name of King Edward VIII. He was born in 1894 and he died in 1972. And he was asked what his thoughts on America were. Now, he's from England. And he said, quote, the thing that impresses me most about America is the way parents obey their children, end quote. The thing that impresses me most about America is the way parents obey their children. Obviously, that's tongue-in-cheek. Obviously, he was laughing at us. Obviously, it's a joke. But that was years ago. He died in 1972. And it's gotten worse. It's gotten way worse. And so, who raised Jim Acosta? Or who forgot to raise Jim Acosta? That's my question. And by the way, that little story about Jim Acosta asking for directions to the White House men's room, I made that up. I made that up. Because what I said was, the staffer said to Mr. Acosta, follow this hall, make the first left, and you'll see a sign on the door that says gentleman. But don't let that deter you. And what I meant by that is, obviously, he's not a gentleman. He's a bully. He's a bully. Any comments on that?
I've said it. I don't need to repeat it. I just wished we had more sincerity in our, rather than agendas. You know, the White House aside, whether or not influenced by Russia or not, of course Russia is going to try to do something. Of course the United States is trying to do things in Afghanistan and Iraq. Of course Iran is going to run the blockage in the Straits of Hormuz. And this is craziness. This is craziness. And it isn't any longer. The Democratic Party has switched its values. The Democratic Party was the ones against immigration. I mean, get a grip. What's going on? Well, it's no longer Democrats and Republicans, because even within the party, they're both split down the middle with shill. And when I say shill, aside from values, which are absolutely moral codes of ethics, rules of conduct, these are assumed in most cases because you learned them in school. And then you went home and they were enforced at the kitchen table. When was the last time you sat down with your entire family for a dinner? I'm not asking you, Vincent, because you're different.
That'd be yesterday. That'd be yesterday.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
And the day before.
What happened to those kinds of values where there is a family involved? And it isn't me first and my sister, as I don't know where she is. Blood aside and friendship constructs aside, your best friend is usually your mate. If you're lucky, your best friend is your mate. Somebody that you trust beyond anybody else. And it goes outward from there to blood and your family, taking care of the individual, the black sheep or whatever. It's just the values constructs of what I'm saying today are a reflection of our education. How many people are actually going on for advanced degrees anymore? And why is this country now number 20 in education? We're supposed to be the richest country in the world. Why is our education? In graduate school, when I was in graduate school, we were not number one in education, except in advanced studies. After you went to college, it was graduate level. Everybody, not undergraduate, graduate level, because of toys. That was in physics. That's the way it worked. And the University of Washington was third in the country because it was the richest university in the country. Not Harvard, not Princeton, not MIT. Washington State University owned the gravity wave generator in Texas. That's where I did my undergraduate work. Now, that's what made that education better than anywhere else in the world, because of the education. Nobody is interested in that anymore. Nobody. It isn't as important. Merit badges. I understand there are many different kinds of intelligences. Mine is one kind. A woman's intuition is absolutely another. You are blessed with your wife, by the way. When I called her this morning because you were running late, she is your flagship. And that is a reflection of the American family as I remembered it and grew up in it. My father sat to my right, and if I did something wrong, man, he was on me like thing on jet. My sister sat across from me, and Mom was at the other end of the kitchen table, and we ate dinner every night together. Now, I was not allowed to do that with my daughter. And my daughter now has parties. When I say parties, when she does dinner, she might have as many as 30 people. She's, wrote books on cooking and likes to cook. And when she does, it's just like the whole thing. And she has all her friends over, every day. Someone else. It's a big dinner party kind of thing. My daughter's different, but that's unusual and different, and it's all cool. I don't know what's going on in our world today, but aside, in sciences, you can't even believe in the sciences anymore. There are misreportings where somebody will fudge the data to make his theory right so he can get a grant. Peer review and the idea of being able to stand up within your peers and making judgment on your values. That kind of thing has been lost. I always wanted to become Will Rogers. Not the scientist. I wanted to be Will Rogers, the guy from, Reason from the country, the values of country living. And I don't know. But what I'm seeing now in driving, you're absolutely correct about the roads today. It is unbelievable. My girlfriend is one of the politest women in the way she drives of anyone I've ever known. It blows me away. I can't do what she does. But she'll put her turn signal on to try to merge into the lane, and they'll bunch up on her, so she can't. What are they trying to do? Make her miss her turn? Why? That's the questions that need to be asked.
So imagine if the power goes out and the traffic lights don't work. What's going to be like then? Gosh, can you imagine?
I can.
No rules.
I have seen it. I've actually seen it. There are those people that they slow down. They start to be more mindful of who's first, who's on second, that kind of thing. No, he's on third. But even then, there's an edge, and somebody will get irritated at somebody else for not moving quite as quickly as they think they should, and they move ahead because, you've lost your turn. They are able to rationalize and justify their behavior. And that is also incorrect.
No disagreement. And I was thinking about this.
Well, that's Christianity, and that's a sane gospel. And if you want to go back to the teachings of Christ, I'm not a Christian per se. I have absolutely, thoroughly studied the teachings of Christ and embraced them as values I would like to aspire toward. You'll find in most of your religions, the very tenets of their foundation are the things they break the most, like Christianity and making judgment. Now, with that said, everyone to his own, and values aside, the Muslims are, more dedicated to religion and practicing what they preach than the Christians are. And I see that now in the American family across the board, and it's time their charity and gratitude and these other values of of treating someone like you'd like to be treated. Is that where Acosta's coming from? Oh, well, he's probably not a Christian. What? Say, it isn't about religion anymore, because religion, like science, is a limited, closed system. Science doesn't have the answers either. And that's a fact. I don't know any law that's lasted longer than 20 years. Now we're talking about the Earth still going back to being flat again. The correct answer, by the way, is yes. It's all of it. And that's what the wonder of being human is about. You have choice. Who chooses to be an asshole? There it is.
Rick, I was thinking about college as I was watching this Jim Acosta scene on the internet. And I was thinking that, we have our children go to the public training camp from K through first grade, through elementary, middle school, high school. There are parent-teacher conferences, and the parents and the teachers talk about, how how well their child is doing. But it doesn't happen in college. There are no parent-teacher conferences in college. Let's talk a little bit about that when we come back. So we're talking about the genesis of this problem, and we used to have parent-teacher conferences. I remember going to them, and I remember talking with the teachers about, how well our children were doing in school and what they needed to do better and that kind of thing. That was before we homeschooled them. And then I remember going to a high school parent-teacher conference. One of our boys decided that he had been homeschooled all his life, and he wanted to try high school, public training camp high school. So Mrs. Finelli and I went to the parent-teacher conference, and the teacher talked about grades, and she talked about, if he did a couple things, he would be an A student. He could move from a B to an A if he just did certain things. And she said, you care about grades, don't you? And I said, no, I don't. I don't care about grades at all. I don't care about grades. I said, but what I do care about is that he's learning. And if he's not learning, I'll be all over you and the school. And I was. Because he would come home and I'd say, so tell me about your day. And he'd say, we didn't do much. And I'd say, well, what did you do? And I'd ask him. And I realized that he wasn't learning. And I said, hey, you're getting dumber by the second. I'm not kidding. You're getting dumber. We got to get you out of there. And we did. But before I did that, I decided to run for the school board to fire the superintendent for dropping the ball and letting all these children spend time and effort without learning much. So my plan was to fire the superintendent by being on the school board and to dump the drug testing program in favor of drug education and get rid of a lot of the computers and the babysitting of the computers of the students in favor of teachers who actually knew what they were doing to teach the students, rather than having an English teacher teach biology, which is what happened. Can you imagine that? An English teacher teaching biology. That's what we had. It's unacceptable. So the English teacher was reading the biology book, a couple pages ahead of the students. So if you had a good reader, a bright student, he could eclipse the teacher. How can that happen? Well, it does. So that's why I ran for the school board. Now, I did have one parent-teacher conference when our daughter, who started college at 14 years old, I was hauled in to meet with the dean of students because they perceived me as a problem, because I required certain things of our daughter in order to use the family vehicle. Like, she would have to do a walk-around of the vehicle prior to getting in the vehicle to make sure the tires were inflated properly, visual inspection. She had to do the maintenance. If the vehicle needed a brake job, she had to do it. I would supervise her and teach her how to do it. She had to change her own tires. She had to be able to change the serpentine belt. She had to be able to take out the air cleaner from the air cleaner housing and inspect it and clean it out. She had to change spark plugs. She had to wash the insides of the windows, the outsides of the windows, not use a cell phone while she was driving. Cell phone had to be in the back seat, off. Radio had to be off. Headlights had to be on. Those kinds of things. So the dean hauls me in and wants to know why. This is like cruel and unusual punishment by me of our daughter. And I said, look, I didn't get a manual with her. She didn't come with an instruction booklet. I'm figuring this out on my own. And by the way, she's our daughter, not yours. He backed down. So here's the problem. The problem is when you send your children to college or the university, there's no supervision of the instruction. You just send them off and say, every month or so you may hear from them and ask them how they're doing. They learn about perversion. They learn about being queer. They learn about, being queer as a lifestyle. It's just an alternative. It's okay. They learn all kinds of things. that would have their parents gasping if they knew. But they don't know. And so what's the result? What we've got today. The millennials. The millennials. Me first. That's what we've got. I'd love to hear your comment, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, when we come back. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of the USA Prepares. We're talking about one of the biggest problems that's facing us, and that is stupidity. Albert Einstein said, speaking generally, only 2 things are infinite: the universe and human stupidity. And I'm not too sure about the former. That was Albert Einstein.
What it does, the problem that we're facing now is that the connection to individuals in the universe, in America, is through the media. And because it's through the media that connects you and me, we're with GCN, you're listening on radio, you're watching TV, you're reading a newspaper, the media has the responsibility of presenting the correct ways of being, because it's what we all key off of. If we watch somebody being rude to another, and that's the norm, then we have a problem, Houston. And that's where the media is truly failing. They are supposed to be the ones setting the example of behavior for America. That's why I liked Walter Cronkite and Charles Kuralt. Charles Kuralt, on the road, was not interested in sensationalism. He was interested in a good, warm story. Like, instead of the fish, and did the fish put up a big fight, and he came back to Dad and said, I put up a bigger one. That's what the media should be doing, is the best of the best in the way of behavior. They failed.
Yeah, and what happened with education, higher education, if you will, college, university, there's no parent involvement. What we do is we drop off our children on first day of freshman year, and we make sure that they get settled into their room, and then we show up, if they graduate, at their graduation, and watch that. But in between those 4 years, it's hands off. All we do is, as parents, is send the university or the college money. That's our biggest involvement, is writing that check.
On the other side of that coin, there's also, if you haven't learned how to be polite and have your manners before you're 12, what's wrong with your family?
Right. And in 1972, class, about 25% of those who attended the university, public university, would finish. 1 out of 4. Have things gotten better? No. Now, it's 19% finish 4 years. So students go, but they don't make it. And yesterday I talked about a colonel, Colonel Billy Long. And what's a colonel? An auctioneer. An auctioneer has the title of colonel. What a misuse of that word, right? Colonel. So we have a colonel who was re-elected to Congress again, and he's an auctioneer. Tell me of a profession that is less honest than an auctioneer.
Well,
We're right
there's
up there
that
with
guy
used car
that,
salesmen.
yesterday, there was a guy that was voted into the Senate in one of the states, I think it was, that was dead. He ran a whorehouse.
He was dead.
Yeah, he won.
He was dead.
Now, look,
Yeah.
these things happen. That's all normal. Just moving forward for a second. Well,
It's
go ahead.
normal to have a guy who runs a whorehouse, literally, no exaggeration. This guy ran a whorehouse, and he was elected as a representative when he was dead.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. So we are, we've I think elected our first transsexual. We've elected our first governor who is a homo. It used to be if you were a homosexual, you were pummeled.
Instead of a
When I was
Homo
growing up.
sapien. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. Greek
We are really, really falling down. Well, Rick, I want to
the place that I thought was amusing last week and last month was when they described that there are 36 different genders. Now, okay, that's sure. I remember the drug cocaine, and when people would put a little sign over their door saying when Alice was in over Alistair. Now, that's all craziness. And I am speaking in metaphor. There is something wrong going on here, man. And I don't have a clue. What I can try to do for myself is walk my own talk. Try to do it right. And I make mistakes and try to pick myself up. And the big key is don't make the same mistake twice. So there's personal growth going on. Now, if one carries oneself like that, and you act by example, where is that going to put CNN?
I don't even have a channel that says CNN on my TV. As a matter of fact, and I'm speaking literally, we would not watch CNN. We haven't for years. It's nothing new that we're not watching CNN, but we're not going to either. And there was a video, and Mrs. Finelli and I were going to sit down and watch a video, and Robert De Niro was in it. And she said the equivalent of, we're not watching that. Robert De Niro's in it. He's a disgrace. We're not going to watch that. So, I mean, that's how we feel here at our house. Do we boycott? You bet. Absolutely. If we think something is offensive, we do not participate. If we're in public and someone offends us, we speak out about it. Literally, we speak out about it. We let them know that their behavior is absolutely unacceptable. If I'm in Sam's Club with Mrs. Finelli and someone leaves the cart in the middle of, just walks away from the cart and it's blocking everybody, I speak out about it. Everybody in the aisle can hear me. Yo, look at this. She left her cart right in everybody's way. How rude. That's what I do.
Yeah, well, you could get yourself shot in Cave Junction where the Mexican mafia hangs out.
Okay.
And the women that think they own the store are blocking the aisles on purpose.
They better bring something bigger than a 45.
Well, here is the bad news for that. The Russian mafia just moved also into Cave Junction, so we'll watch how that plays down. This is craziness. And I am feeling like because I live in the middle of nowhere, and Josephine County is the middle of nowhere, our graduation level is worse than your Missouri at 74%. And the high school, they have this beautiful, incredible high school cafeteria, the whole thing, football, the rest, there it is. It's good old boy country. And you would think that it'd start to change because our property values are so low that California has double residence. They buy places up here for the summer, whatever. It's a retirement community. and nobody gives a damn about being taxed for education. Now, this was logger mentality at one time. Hoorah. And now we honor vets. Well, I'm watching what's going on with beta testing and that kid that just had that shooting down in Thousand Oaks. Listen, there's something else going on, and what it is internationalists, or what we call globalists, are at war with nationalism. And it's the United Nations. And your so-called Illuminati. It's not Illuminati. Illuminati, I'm study YSEP. I have studied magic since 1970. I'm a scholar. And this is the new direction in medicine with psychedelic healing using mushrooms because it heals the spiritual level. Now they're suggesting that placebo is not 10%, it's 40%, or maybe even 60%. What you believe going on is what goes on. And I'm going to run a tight ship and look for what I'm seeking in my life. And it ain't on TV. There it is. Ain't. There it is. Love it. I love the grammar that you say on there. And I don't correct people, but the level of literacy ain't got no satisfaction.
Rick, it costs about $10,000 a year to educate a child in the public training camp. $10,000 a year. That's outrageous. And what are we getting for our money? And people keep thinking that if we dump more money into it, it's going to get better. The more money we dump into the public training camp, the worse the outcome. The worse the outcome. The more computers we use, the worse the outcome. Students don't have the eye-hand coordination that we need to things. I can't imagine asking young people to help me figure something out. I can't imagine. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. RichardAllenMiller.com. RichardAlanMiller.com. So, class, I just went to census.gov, and I looked up the average mortgage amount per month in our county in Missouri. And it's $858. So the average mortgage payment is $858 as of the year 2017. Now, the cost to educate a child is about $10,000 in the same county per year. So you figure the child goes to school for 9 months. That's $1,100 a month. Huh. That's way more than the cost of the mortgage for the house that child lives in. Think about that. How many houses are owner-occupied in our county? 68%, 6.8. How many building permits were there in our county? In the county, 8. Not 8,000, not 800, 8, E-I-G-H-T. 8 building permits in the entire county. 2017. Just want to give you a little tidbit of where we live and some staggering contrast in numbers. It costs more to educate. It costs more to have your child's time occupied by the public training camp than it does to live in your house per month in our neck of the woods in the corrupt state of Missouri. Are you getting what you expect to out of your education system? Obviously, I don't think so. That's why I ran for school board. I ran against a convicted drug dealer and lost. Makes sense. He's related to everybody. So they had to have their guy. A convicted drug dealer beat me. Not that I'm anything special, But I ran against a drug dealer, and he won. Everybody knows it, that he's a drug dealer. No surprise. The game is rigged. Your children's education is falling down. I suggest you challenge the teachers, the principals, and the superintendents to anything that you want. And challenge them to any kind of discussion. See how smart they are. I think you're going to be very disappointed. I know I was. Our child was in a shop class while the shop teacher cut off the tips of his fingers with a saw. It was terrible. Everybody was, it's a freak accident. Really? It was a freak accident. I'm sorry he cut off the tips of his fingers, but geez, here's a guy who's teaching shop to children, safety and all that, and he cuts off the tips of his fingers in class. He's a nice guy. I'm sorry it happened. But I think as parents, we need to supervise the people who are allegedly educating our children. Any comments, Rick?
Well, no, there's, I've said my piece, and everybody gets it. And now, what can we do about it? Let's talk about that part for a moment. With CNN, is CNN going to actually condone this kind of behavior as okay? Because they disagree with Trump.
They have.
But disagreeing is one thing. Civil disobedience is another. That's correct. Civil disobedience. But what's happening is that they're, within it all, they're throwing in elements of terrorism, like Thousand Oaks. And the general semi-educated, uneducated parts of America begin to have fear. The first enemy of man.
When we come back from the bottom of the hour break, Dan Sutterfield in Missouri is on hold. Dan, you'll be on next as soon as we come back from the bottom of the hour break with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Doc Ram's with us. Dan Sutterfield in Missouri, welcome. You're on with Dr. Richard Allen Miller.
Yes, gentlemen, thank you so much. You hit a spot that's obviously very near and dear to my heart. I was an industrial arts teacher in the state of Missouri for 9 years, guys. And the group of schools that we were in that had competition, like 7 schools, there was 2 or 3 of the industrial arts teachers that butchered themselves while I was teaching. And a lot of them, most of them didn't think that guards were necessary on tools. I mean, they tell you that to your face. And then they go in there and butcher themselves and try to stand there as a good example to the students.
Exactly.
I couldn't believe it, Vince.
It's exactly the point. We have lost the industrial arts training as I remember it. I went to an all-boys Jesuit high school, and we did not have industrial arts training there, but the public schools down the road did. They had wonderful shops. I'm talking back in the 60s. They had great shop teachers, and safety, being careful, preventing accidents, that was a big deal. It really was a big deal. And that's something that we need to know. Heck, I see people, and Einstein was right. Stupidity is absolutely limitless. I see people on their riding lawnmowers in flip-flops. Does that make any sense?
With a grandchild on their lap.
Okay, I agree.
I've seen that.
Agree.
It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listen, let me go back to something else, if you don't mind, just for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
I've never seen a president in person, just on TV. And Cape Girardeau is not that far from where we live, so we took off. I've got a friend that lives down there. We stayed with them. And my wife and I were in line at 10:30 that morning. They weren't going to open the building until 6 in the evening, and he didn't speak until 9. Well, he ended up a little late. But other than that, it was a rainy day, and the rain got worse. And about 3:30 in the afternoon, we were all in a line, and the line kind of was a serpentine thing that stretched across the parking lot, and there was a semblance there, no argument, of a line, and there had been people there 24 hours in advance. So they were up near the front, and the newcomers would say, "Where's the end of the line?" People would point. Everybody was getting along. We were all visiting very nicely, and pretty much everybody was covered up. Not very few were actually out in the rain. They were under something. And about 3:30, somebody in their infinite wisdom started spreading a rumor that they're going to let us in. And you could just hear that murmur go through the crowd. And as soon as it went through the crowd, all semblance of lines dissolved. And they all just kind of went sideways into this clump that started moving toward the building. And they moved about 25 feet, and then it jammed up because, of course, they weren't letting us in. And it just destroyed what little faith I've got in humanity almost. There wasn't any fist fights. There wasn't anybody screaming. But that was because the people that got shoved to the back and shoved to the side just didn't stand up for their rights, and there wouldn't have been any use. It was a crowd. It was a mob. I couldn't believe it.
Well, let me contrast that.
And you know, Vince, and this is a good indication of why you're not having the respect and the love, the luck, or whatever you want to call it, of getting on the school board and getting in the co-op board of directors. You're dealing with a bunch of people that if they've got their team sports to look at on TV and their six-pack, that's all they want. Leave me alone. Everything's fine. Vince, I don't think the general population has got, if they had any common sense, they probably lost it. And I'm not trying to insult people. They just haven't had good role models, whether it be their parents or their schools or what. What do you think about that, guys?
I think you're right on in terms of role model. That's a good concept. That's what media should be about, Mr. Rogers. Where you learn behavior and, rules of engagement. Yeah, role models. That's what's needed.
Dan, we can't name a role model. There's no such thing, other than maybe Donald Trump at this point as a role model in some ways. I can't name Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton as role models. You can't name
these. Wash your mouth out, Vince. You shouldn't talk like that on the air.
Yeah, you're talking about that syndicate from Arkansas. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, you asked about presidents. I met President Leslie Lynch King. I met him, Leslie Lynch King. And we don't remember him by that name. We remember him by the name of Gerald Ford. But his birth name was Leslie Lynch King, K-I-N-G.
I didn't know that.
I met Gerald Ford back in the mid-1980s. He was on the board of directors of a corporation that I was employed by. It was a banking corporation. Actually, it was a conglomerate. And I was in the banking division, the credit card division. We built a new data center. And Gerald Ford came to the unveiling of this brand new data center with, the latest mainframes and communications equipment and so forth. And there were 5 of us, excluding the president, in the room, actually in the computer center itself. And I got a chance to chat with the president, just 5 of us, the guys who were the designers. I was in the communications part of the design of this data center. The guy who, made the computers talk to computers, that kind of thing, and outside computers and data centers that were out external to our bank. That was my job. So I was selected to meet the president, along with 4 other guys. And we spent 15 minutes with him. And I got to tell you, the Secret Service was outside with their machine guns under their coats. It was not tense at all. It was polite. It was a beautiful thing. Everybody was so polite, courteous. It was the way it should be, not just because he was the former president, but it should be like that with everybody. That's how we should behave. But that's not what happens. What happens is we have ladder climbers, people who want to climb the corporate ladder, and I got sick of it. I literally got sick of being in the corporate merry-go-round. And the idea was my thought was you do a good job and you climb the ladder. Well, I would do a good job and there'd be 4 guys pulling me off the ladder because I would make them look bad. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying that, and that happens. You do a good job. Other people see it and they go, hey, knock it off. You're making us look bad. So they set up tripwires and landmines to prevent you from doing a good job. That's what happens because they are weak. They are evil. And I got sick of trying to climb the corporate ladder, so I jumped off the ladder. Literally, I quit. I walked out. I was scheduled to go to a meeting. I had a terrible boss at the time, and I just said, excuse me, in a meeting. And I walked out the door, never to be seen again. I was a corporate officer. People said, are you kidding me? You quit? What'd you do that for? Your peers are making $250,000 a year. This is like in the 90s. Why would you quit? That's stupid. Because I didn't want to be part of it. I didn't want to be part of this me first. And I saw it back then in the 80s. It's gotten worse. Much worse. It's inexcusable. And I blame the parents. I blame the parents for not watching their children in school. I blame the parents for not showing up at school. I blame the parents for not teaching their children how to eat. I blame the parents for not buying Emily Post's book on etiquette. Sometimes people will come here and will say, we have 3 different things to drink. We have cranberry juice, we have water, and we have orange juice. And they'll say, okay, cranberry juice. And we'll let them pour their own. They'll fill up the glass and leave 2/3 of it and throw it away. How often do you think those people come back to our house? Not very often. I'm serious.
I see the same thing. That's the main reason I left public schools. Vince, the history teacher, the math teacher, they were lucky if they didn't have to buy the chalk and erasers out of their own pocket or have a movie that was younger than 15 years old. They never got a field trip. They never got a guest speaker. It was just strictly whatever they could pull out of their hat to try to get these kids interested in what they were doing. But, boy, we could refinish that gym floor 3 times a year because that's important,
Well, you're absolutely right. The parents at the beginning of the school year, I'm talking about the public training camp, K through high school, the parents get a list of, these are things that we'd like to have you send with your child. Toilet paper? That'd be nice. Kleenex boxes? That'd be nice. Pencils? That'd be nice. Paper? That'd be nice. Are you kidding? Really? Those things you have to send to school now? You're absolutely right. Their gym floors are refinished. They are. It's pomp and circumstance. It's illusion. And then you ask any one of those students, let's take high school, for example. Can you give me directions to get to town without the phone, without your phone? Tell me how to get from here to someplace else.
And use
places
the
they've been hundreds of times. They can't do it. They can't do it. They can't do it by landmarks. They can't do it by distance. They can't do it by time. They can't do it. So why is it that we all don't run for the director's position on school boards and fire the entire administration? Why don't we do it? I tried. I put an ad in the paper. They even know about this at the Capitol in Missouri. They know that there was a guy in Wright County who put an ad in the paper that said fire the entire school board, one director at a time. Consider voting for the only candidate who won't make your child urinate in a cup. Vincent Finelli. They know I did. They know I did it. Please hold through the break if you'd like. So what's wrong with our schools? Well, it's the absence of, this is my opinion, what's wrong with schools? It's the absence of parents and parenting. In Virginia, there was a trade school. They taught plumbing, electricity, automotive shop, framing, masonry, even haircutting, okay? And they dumped it. For what? For keyboard and mouse clicking. No kidding. No kidding. Dan Sutterfield, you are the only, well, there are a couple of us, but there are very few of us who are willing to talk about what's wrong with education as a former educator, as you and I have been. I'd like to hear more about what you think is wrong with education. What happened? What went wrong?
Well, I don't think we got enough time, Vince, but I referred whenever after I'd been in it about 4 or 5 years, I referred to it as federally subsidized babysitting.
No, you're absolutely right.
Whenever we had a parent-teacher night where you opened up your classroom, all the parents were invited, the kids were invited, so the parents could see what the kids were involved in. Every classroom in the whole school was opened up. Of course, the teachers had to be there, and that was fine. We wanted to be there if we wanted to teach. I mean, that was. It should be a passion rather than a job. But when the parents would show up, the ones you would see would be the students that are acting decent in class, the students that are really trying to learn and are producing something. In my case, the ones that you wanted to see, where you knew the kid had some talent, and you just couldn't motivate him. Those parents never show up, and that's probably why the kid was having trouble. The parents weren't trying to instill in that child the desire to want to learn. And nobody ever badmouthed me that I know of. The parents didn't. They just didn't show up.
In Virginia, they had an expression for that, and that was the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yep.
So like father, like son, like mother, like daughter. And I was a consultant, and I did something I thought was pretty cool. I tried to take out Microsoft from the entire county school district. What I did was I implemented Linux for absolute free, no cost. I got Red Hat Linux to give us everything they had for free, and we put Linux on all the networked computers in the school system. We're the first school to ever do that. And I thought that was pretty cool. And we taught the Red Hat Certification University a college design system, a college design program, a college design curriculum at the high school level. We were the first to do that as well. And I thought that the parents would come in droves. So I manned my station in my classroom as a consultant from 7 in the morning to 7 at night, anxiously awaiting the parents of the students. Not one showed up. Not one.
That's sad.
So I've experienced exactly what you're talking about. It's the parents. What are they thinking? Just send their money, their stolen money through taxes. The biggest portion of your real estate taxes goes to the public training camp. By far the biggest portion. And it's being wasted.
I could give you a quote I just found. The bottom line is that education helps redistribute wealth and opportunity, giving people the freedom to choose a lifestyle of their liking. Education is the key to freedom. Freedom is bliss. And by the way, bliss is considered by the Amish the highest form of love there is. Education.
I think they've mixed up the word education with ignorance, because we know we've all heard ignorance is bliss. Seems like they're happy to sit there and be ignorant, too.
Dan, I really appreciate your thoughts and your words of wisdom, and no disagreement whatsoever. We're all on the same page right here at USA Prepares. We're watching our country spiral down the drain. We're outnumbered by the stupid, and there's an infinite supply of the stupid. And I was counseled once on, trying to bring people into the fold who just don't get it. I'm sorry, we don't have enough time for that.